Welcome to Happily Ever Aftermath, the podcast that explores the movies that influenced how we view love and romantic relationships. Yes, there will be spoilers. I'm your host, Diana Rojek Skonnord. Is any dream futile? It gives us hope, and hope is a good thing. We're talking about Mr. Malcolm's List from 2022, and Ryan is here to tell me, is it futile or futile?
Futile probably sounds more Englishy and period appropriate.
But am I okay?
Yeah, futile is a probably an Americanism.
Oh, good thing I live in America.
Yes, you do.
Alrighty. But when I'm in England, I will say futile.
Yeah.
And talk about corn laws.
And this movie?
Yeah,
we're doing new releases. Woo! We are topical AF over here.
I know, like we did The Matrix Resurrections only 6 months?
Is it less than a year after it came out?
Woo! Yeah. Yes, we are.
So where were you in your life when you first saw this movie, Diana?
When I first saw this movie?
Yes.
I was over there on the couch. I've done the over there on the couch joke before. Okay. Thank you for watching this with me, and also more importantly, thank you for the approximately 3-week span where I would be like, honey, this movie's in the theaters. You want to see it with me? Yeah, okay. And then I would never follow up on it, but instead complain about how it would never get us to the theater.
Yeah, it's hard to go places these days, you know?
But then my gripe turned into, cool, this came out on July 1st. Well, we're going somewhere, but maybe we can, I don't know, going to the movies on a weeknight sounds like the kind of thing Not Me does. So maybe we can maybe we can see this when we get back and it's out of the theaters. So
and newly on streaming.
Newly to rent.
Yeah.
Newly to rent, thank goodness, because well, as someone who after the first 10 minutes of this movie goes, and I'm going to buy this on DVD for my mother because she will love this. I actually had to confirm because trailers can be tricky.
Yeah, and that was a fun 3 weeks when we were toying with the idea of seeing this in the theaters. In part because I could not for the life of me remember the title. I kept wanting to call it what I call it, Mr. Morton's List, or
you did call it that. And
there were several other variations after it became apparent that it was fun to needle you with that. Malcolm McDowell's List. Mm-hmm. Do you remember any others?
I unfortunately don't, and I also don't remember. I want to tell people listening, we do this to each other, and I did something similar, but sadly I can't remember what it is. So don't be too concerned that he's just a jerk face to me. I have my own version of calling it something. God, it's going to bother me.
Yeah, when you're married for enough years, you have to invent new ways to have fun, I guess.
Yes, we have invented new fun, but unfortunately we cannot market it because it's very, very specific fun to just you and me. Mm-hmm. Alrighty. So Mr. Malcolm's List, recent release, and we're still going to follow the format of the show, so spoilers will be abound, but I really didn't like any of the descriptions that I read, and there's also not a lot on the internet about this because this movie has been out for about 3 weeks.
Yeah.
So, in general, I'll try to do this in 3 sentences or less.
Yeah. So you're writing your own synopsis for this one?
I'm trying to in real time.
That's podcast craftsmanship right there.
Okay. So Mr. Malcolm is considered to be the catch of the season.
Why don't you back up and tell us the time and place?
That doesn't matter.
The catch of the season. Yes, he's a fish. Okay.
He is. So Mr. Mackerel's List. Okay, so we're talking about London 19th century.
Right. Like, is that...
it's literally 1818.
1818? I thought it was 180...
When they were girls.
That explains it. Okay, yeah, you're right.
And
so 1818.
And I have failed.
Right, I remember noticing how weird the ones were in the number and the inner title on screen.
12 sentences later. This is London... 1818. Mm-hmm. Mr. Malcolm is considered to be the catch of the marriage season.
Because they get married in seasons back then. That's how it worked.
I think it had more to do with this. That's when everyone was in town, so they could be collectively trying to catch their spouses.
Yes. I was being flippant, but there's an actual seasonal cycle to the balls and the social events, and that's when people meet and hook up and get engaged.
Julia Thistlethwaite went on a date with Mr. Malcolm at the opera. She did not present herself in a manner in which he considered to be a good prospective bride.
First date, don't have such a good time. It happens in all ages.
So in turn, the gossips get a hold of that, and there is this cartoon that's published, and it's basically Mr. Malcolm and Julia, and it says next.
Yeah.
Because he's looking for a bride and he's not going to follow up on her. So
yeah, so like the gossips blew it up into a much more dramatic dumping than it actually was, right?
Right. It wasn't really a dumping. He went on one date with her and didn't follow up.
Yeah.
So she decides to reach out to her friend Selena, a friend from school. And she said, like, I think what we need to do here is this man needs to be taught a lesson. And I'm sorry. I need to back up. She has a cousin who is acquainted with Mr. Malcolm and finds out that Mr. Malcolm has a list of what he wants for a future bride. And so when her cousin brings that information back, she brings in Selena and says, we're going to make you to be everything on his list. And then he's going to find out that he does not meet what your requirements are. And then he'll get his own comeuppance. Mm-hmm. That was 45 sentences. It's...
schemes and capers.
See, you said that.
What?
When you're just like, oh, okay, so let's bring on the...
Oh, that was specifically when there was a masquerade ball going on. It's like, oh yeah, hey, mistaken identity. We're in for some hijinks.
You said hijinks, and I'm just like, we're like an hour 15 into this movie. I don't think hijinks are going to get started. If they were going to hijinks, they were going to do it earlier,
right?
And set a bigger tone.
So something more serious than hijinks.
Yeah, I got spoiler. No, not no. We had this exact fight in the movie. It was
yes, it was funny. I was repeating it.
Deviousness.
Devious shenanigans.
There
yes.
was not
Okay.
Are shenanigans?
Wait, hang on. The namby-pamby. I lost track of all the period British slang and the.
Are you calling me a namby-pamby because I won't give in to your shenanigans?
I would have to look up what that means first.
Shenanigans to me implies it's a little bit more lighthearted.
Yeah.
This was cruelty on two levels.
Yes.
But now that I have discovered that the internet has a harder job in trying to get 2 sentences going for a synopsis, but I will never stop complaining about it. The cast includes Freida Pinto as Selena Dalton, Ṣọpẹ Dìrísù as Jeremy Malcolm, and Zawe Ashton, Julia Thistlethwaite, Oliver Jackson-Cohen as her cousin Cassidy, who she calls Cassie, which is really sweet. Mm-hmm. And then Theo James is Captain Henry Ossory. And then there's other characters that we'll mention as they fill out the supporting.
Yes.
I was looking forward to seeing this. I was very frustrated that I couldn't see it in the theaters because I wanted to support it in the theaters. But let's be perfectly honest. I had passes from Fandango that I was going to use for it.
Yes.
That instead I used on Thor: Love and Thunder.
Which was also pretty good.
I have a different opinion, but that's not the point of this podcast.
Okay.
What did you think about this?
I thought it was good. As we've discussed in the past, I am kind of hard to like actively displease. Like it takes a lot for me to actively dislike a movie. This was not like my favorite movie of the year, but it's like, oh, okay, hey, we're doing a period romance and it's gonna be socially distant people within the is it Edwardian or Regency society? I don't know. 1818. I don't know exactly which period that falls into, but the
important question: when you say socially distanced people.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I didn't even. No.
Are you talking about different class structures?
Because
that wasn't really a big deal either.
No, I just mean more how like that society was about everyone being kind of restrained and not showing a lot of emotion and speaking to each other very formally.
You actually paused in the middle when he said, "Please call me Jeremy," and you're like, "Is that a big deal?"
Yeah, I was kind of being funny then. I knew it was a big deal. This is not my first Regency romance.
But I was shocked when I'm just like, but he hasn't asked her to marry him yet.
Yeah, there was some like pre-engagement kissing going on that I also understand would have been considered fairly scandalous.
Had they been discussed. I only know this from fictional, romance novels, what have you. And I'm just like, that's not the best place for me to. It's kind of like how I learned. Okay, no, that's totally different. I was about to say it's like how I learned history from The Simpsons. It's different when you learn the pieces that you need to memorize for the Declaration of Independence. That's okay. But like
Sure.
what actually happened though, not so much.
Yeah. So let's just say the Jane Austen-esque romance of passions bubbling underneath a genteel surface.
Although I would say that in the 95 adaptation, Elizabeth was alone with Darcy a lot.
Adaptation of what now?
Pride and Prejudice.
Okay, yeah. We don't even need to say the title at this point.
But at the same time, I am surprised that she was alone with him as much as she was.
Yeah, so since you brought it up, yeah, the comparisons to Pride and Prejudice are
abundant.
Yeah, I mean, when we were first talking about this movie, I read the synopsis, and I think the particular synopsis that I landed on was describing Mr. Malcolm as sort of like a standoffish but with a heart of gold type,
and well, see, that's what's kind of weird though, is that I went in with that too, and I think that's just Pride and Prejudice Darcy propaganda.
Yeah.
Because I explained this in the other episodes before, but Mr. Darcy is just like, oh no, you just need to get to know him, and it turns out he's amazing. I'm like, no, he's a dick. He's very much a class level, like, snooty piece of crap that needed to learn his lessons. Dick.
Which was also the case in this. There
yes.
was like, yeah, I mean, this movie is in a lot of ways just kind of an extended character study on Mr. Malcolm,
yes.
and
yes.
yeah, there are attributes of his that turn out to be more sympathetic and understandable, and other attributes that he kind of learns a lesson about and winds up apologizing for. And I remember chuckling when another character described him as arrogant and judgmental, which is a completely different thing from Pride and Prejudice.
Well, the other thing though is that you have Julia just completely blasting him because she was rejected by him, quote unquote. Yes,
right.
She was rejected by him, but it's not like he didn't humiliate her, except he accidentally did, because that's just how the gossip works.
Yeah, I mean, she really should have been mad at the gossips and the caricaturist who drew that cartoon that, kind of like, made a mountain out of a molehill and just decided to use this like fairly small interaction as a means to just unfairly humiliate Julia. And Mr. Malcolm is getting all the blame for this, which is
from her specifically.
Yeah, from her, yeah.
Yeah, you when you look at the other characters, for example, her cousin Cassie and also Selena, who reluctantly goes along with this, the way when a good friend tells you, "Come on, let's go do this thing," and it's just like, I love you.
Yeah, so yeah, Cassidy basically appointed himself double agent from the very beginning. He had ulterior motives in stringing Julie along with his caper, and Selena was like kind of just doing it to be a good friend, but her heart wasn't in it either.
Which is kind of nice. The descriptions that I read, not descriptions so much as just like the reviews. I guess the author took inspiration from Jane Austen.
No, okay, sorry.
Oscar Wilde, and third author that's when you started bringing up the whole shenanigans thing, I'm just like, it's not as blatant.
Yeah, I can see the Oscar Wilde influences. I've always loved The Importance of Being Earnest, and I think I made you watch the film adaptation of that some years ago.
You did.
Yeah.
So the thing I wanted to point out is that yes, Pride and Prejudice, there were some instances where I was listening to the dialogue and I actually started twitching. Every blatant Pride and Prejudice thing happened.
The tropes.
No, not the tropes. The actual like lines where when Mr. Malcolm said he couldn't dance and the person replied was just like, well, how is one supposed to encourage affection if not with dancing? And I'm like, oh geez, that's lifted, where certain words are just kind of like, high pitched things that I'll hear.
It makes me wonder how much of that is like borrowing directly from another novel versus just like being faithful to what people would have said in that situation in that historical context. I mean, that society had like a lot of rules about like, well, you court by dancing. How else are you going to court?
Talking?
Oh no, I don't think so.
Poetry is the I don't never mind.
Were women even supposed to talk back then?
No.
Yeah, you see,
no,
there's a problem.
Not at all. That's why all of these women are terrible people. The other thing, though, is I explained to you the lighting in the last scene was to me, very, very reminiscent, if not identical, to the end of the Keira Knightley Pride and Prejudice.
Yes, you mentioned that to me. The sun shining through between the two kissing faces.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that, again, these are the things I noticed, but I'll tell you this much. I was twitching when I heard the dialogue, in that, okay, I see what you're doing there, but it isn't so much as that when I'm reading Pride and Prejudice fan fiction and they pull sentences and paragraphs verbatim, but it's like an alternate universe that's supposed to be modern, and I'm just like, oh god, don't do that. Oh god, and you're also putting it in italics, so we know for a fact that it's being pulled directly from Pride and Prejudice. Stop it.
You have very particular tastes, don't you?
What? No. Stop it.
Maybe you need to learn a lesson about not rushing to judgment about fan fiction.
I'm going to pull my list out right now, and you are going to get some...
Am I not getting some check marks right now?
Well, see, the thing is, we're married, so it's Mrs. Diana's point system.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, it's too late for you to back out, so...
What are you talking about? Divorce exists. This is in 1818 London.
Yeah, it sounds expensive.
You were talking about what is allowed to be said at this point in time, and I did pull up this other quote that I really appreciated, and it was in the middle of there where, you know, courting and the conversation between Jeremy and Selena, and I love that he says, you learn the rules, you follow the rules. If there's a moment where there is no rule, you make a rule, you follow that. I find everything else is overwhelming, and I'm like, oh, that's just life now. For me, that's I'm married, so I don't have to worry about courting.
Right.
So. And
personality-wise, I'd say we're both, by and large, rule followers by nature, so...
Yeah, it's annoying.
Yeah.
Because who's making up those rules, and I don't trust them anymore.
Sometimes they're dumb, but then there's social pressure, and yeah.
Indeed. All of the above. But overall, yes, there is so much, like, I am a very special case I have watched, but let's be perfectly honest, I think the intended audience is also a special case as well.
Oh yeah, this was a niche appeal kind of movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this would not be introduced at San Diego Comic-Con.
I would think not.
I would like this universe, though.
Oh yeah, I mean, you do like this universe.
I do like this universe. But apparently, and it was helpful to get clarification, I was watching the beginning credits, and I'm just like, isn't Gemma Chan in this movie? And Gemma Chan never appeared. Later, come to find out, because I was thinking, oh, maybe I'm mixing up. Gemma Chan is in Persuasion, and I mixed these two movies up. Now, it turns out that there was a 2019 like mini video that they created to help make this movie. And she was Julia in that version. And she didn't come back to play Julia in the full motion picture.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I always think those stories are interesting when there's like a short film shot, almost like a pilot or like a test project.
Right. And then when that happens, it has to be like in the Academy things. It has to be based on it can never be considered an original screenplay.
Oh, yeah. Those technicalities.
Kind
of annoying.
It's a little bit annoying. But overall, I enjoyed this.
Oh, good.
I really enjoyed this movie. It's beautiful. It's very bright scenes, very colorful in terms of like the set pieces, and there is just acting's fantastic.
Yeah.
I'm interested in all the characters. Even, I mean, this is the genre that I enjoy. Even if you can feel where it's going, even if you feel tropes just like punching you in the face.
Yeah. I was going to say like this whole genre is a little bit constrained by like the story has to take certain beats, and if you're gonna like sit around and complain about the plot being cookie cutter, then I just don't think it's for you. And you know, being married to someone who's a big fan of this genre, I've seen my share of it, and yeah, you know, it's not exactly my thing, but I don't mind it. You know, you just go like a well told story, and I definitely agree with what you were saying about the acting. yeah, whatever you can say about the tropes and the kind of formula being followed, I didn't think the performances were, in any way like phoned in to go with that. I thought it was definitely like kind of above the median acting talent on display, which was nice to watch. It was entertaining.
I don't think we take very much time watching stuff where people are just not good.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
It has to be a very, very specific set of circumstances. But then it's just like, it's a passion piece, it's a labor of love. And then it's just like, oh, they're not technically strong, but look at them go.
Right.
This, on the other hand, I'm just like, oh, I appreciate that they did the 2019 small thing and they're putting their efforts into this. And also these are very good actors. Yay.
Yeah. Because like I said, the main attraction here is these characters and having their kind of like personalities collide in these very socially restrained circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I suppose I'm also happy to watch a movie that's low stakes in that where the universe is not going to implode.
Oh, sure. Yeah. It's a nice break from the kind of like tentpole movies that tend to drag us to the theater lately. And yeah, I was just going to say it's interesting to watch like a movie that is mostly trading on the emotions of the characters in situations where they don't want to show a lot of emotion. So like a little bit of subtlety in the acting goes a really long way. And I thought this was very technically well done in that regard.
And there's also like the humor of it where they're going to introduce Selena for the first time. Oh, yeah, hang out back here. I'm going to create an aura of mystery around you.
Right.
And then,
I love that dry comedy,
Well, also it's even great though because she's there. She accidentally runs into Mr. Malcolm.
Right.
Mr. Malcolm says that I think I met somebody to Cassidy, and he just goes like, oh yeah, well I want to introduce you to somebody. Just a little bit of a mystery. He's like, oh god, no. And so he explains that, and then all of a sudden it's just like, new plan.
Yeah. It's kind of great watching that go awry from the very beginning. It's like, oh wait, you hit this guy and organically hit it off with him without even knowing that he was the target of the scheme. Oh wow, that's going to be great for the later intentional dumping and humiliation. Like,
oh, are we still doing that? Oh, yeah, and it's. We had talked about in earlier episodes, Polina had us watch Singing in the Rain. Mm-hmm. I don't remember if you watched that.
I did not watch that one with you.
Well, what I thought was fun about that movie, it was just like, hey, there's the beginning love stories. And then, okay, now the love story is it's not a love story. Okay, they're together now. And, oh no, they have to do this thing together now as a couple. Oh no. So I found that lately, reading those have been frustrating. I'm just like, you fell in love too fast. Mm-hmm, Are we just doing a couple thing now? No, I see that every day. So this had the love story. There's actually, 2 love stories going on right now in there. And I thought it was great. I really enjoyed it. I do recommend it to those who are fans of the genre. Mm-hmm. You may twitch like I do, or you may not mind. And I hope you enjoy it.
Your twitching is, are you sure you're not being judgmental? Arrogant and judgmental?
You're being fewer points now on your list.
Darn.
So, when we were watching the end, I heard the line, from the moment I met you, ... and you did a very, very blatant, just like pulling out your notebook.
Like pantomimed writing it down for the...
Yes, so
give us the answer. This is going to be on the test.
No test. Okay, except for this test I'm about to give you right now.
Yes.
Here's the question. When did they fall in love?
Well,
and there's 2 couples, but I'll ask you for Selena and Jeremy right now.
Okay. I'll give you 2 answers for Selena and Jeremy because I think it was a different answer for each member of that couple.
It happens a lot.
Yeah. So I'll start with Selena. For me, I kind of pegged it as the scene where he was they talked about okay, so to back up a bit, Selena had told a lie about her annoying cousin.
Yeah.
Because one of the criteria from the list was, not having any disgraceful relatives or whatever, and this cousin is, she talks a lot and has an annoying laugh and kind of, breaks boundaries with people. And
she's very giggly.
She's very giggly, yeah. What was her name? Mrs. Covington, something with a C, right?
I believe that's right.
Yeah, the widow Covington, I think. So anyway, Selena had told a lie about not being related to her, and Julia said she's my cousin. And...
Technically, Julia lied. In
real
time.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I guess Selena was just kind of, she lied by omission, I guess. And yeah, help me out here. When they had that conversation, I think like the lie had been discovered, and wait. Was Mr. Malcolm apologizing for something? I think I actually kind of lost the thread of what happened in that scene.
So what happened is that they're at the estate of his parents.
Mm-hmm.
Her parents are there as well. And so her parents start to say, "Oh yes, Mrs. Covington, did you speak to her like we asked you to, Selena?"
Right,
in front of him. And
yeah, she got busted.
Yeah, she got busted in real time. And she gets up and she starts to walk away. And he immediately rushes over to her,
mm-hmm.
and she says, I was embarrassed, because of how she is. And they earlier had a discussion about, because he brought it up. He's just like, "Oh, that ridiculous woman," basically. And she kind of stormed off, and she's like, why does that matter? And he talks about how important, I guess.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. He had talked about,
when you marry a woman, you marry her family as well.
Right.
And you can't have
yeah, he basically vocalized how glad he was to find out that
not her relation, which she was.
Right.
And so later on.
Oh, yeah. And then when he found out that she actually was her cousin, then he felt embarrassed about having run his mouth about that.
And he even said beforehand, I realized it was bad even after I said it. And now as it turns out, I am so sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. And I kind of took that as the turning point. A turning point, because up to that point, it had been a little bit ambiguous how much Selena was courting Mr. Malcolm out of her own wishes versus going along with this plot of Julia's. And when it calls into questions her motive for concealing the whole thing about Mrs. Covington, because is she doing that in order to keep him on the hook, and because she was given specific instructions, don't violate any of these things on this list, and one of the things on the list is don't have annoying relatives.
Yeah, it's so quick for you to say done and done.
Right.
I will give Selena credit, though, that it looked as though she was when Mrs. Covington was there, it looked like she was about to say, "This is my cousin," and to let it lie just to see if she could still do it, even though having somebody who would be considered a ridiculous relation. But Julia stepped in very, very quickly.
Yeah,
and it's not that she did a thing; it's that she didn't correct when the situation came up.
Yeah, which would probably make her more sympathetic in Malcolm's eyes. But anyway, I guess that scene stood out to me because it was one of the first big indications of Malcolm going through his own character growth arc, admitting he was wrong, very sincerely apologized. And like I said, a lot of the kind of emotional content of this movie came in more of the subtle touches and acting, and I kind of picked up on that, Selena was touched by his sincerity in that moment and was really starting to, grapple with her own genuine affections towards him. And so for the other half, when did Mr. Malcolm fall in love with Selena? I do kind of want to rely on the dialogue. I think this was in the very scene where I was miming writing down in a notebook, but he basically said it was love at first sight. And I do think that that first conversation that they had in the orangery. Am I pronouncing that right? It's just an orange grove, I guess, where they grow the
it's nice
trees.
It's nice to hear orangery instead of orange grove, but you're actually not saving any syllables when you say orangery.
Orangery.
I didn't say it that way.
That's actually more syllables than orange grove.
Futile.
Well, yeah. So basically, they have this kind of witty philosophical conversation about the nature of hope, and I don't think
it was, well, I mean, it sounded witty, but I hear witty, I think bantery.
Not witty in a funny way, but in a clever way.
You could do that?
Yes.
I always assume if you're witty, you're funny.
Connotations.
Okay.
Anyway, they yeah, I thought that was interesting because of what we kind of later learn about like the eponymous list and what that means to Mr. Malcolm. You know, it was interesting when Cassidy was talking about it later on. It's like, well, when he started explaining it, it started to make sense. You know, it's like, why wouldn't you be very careful about whom you marry? And
so, if I might point out once again with the twitching thing, there is a part in Pride and Prejudice where Mr. Darcy does start to rattle off the things about an accomplished woman.
Sure.
And she, has to be accomplished in drawing. And Caroline Bingley comes in. She has to have an air about her presence and stuff like that. So I'm just like, oh, what's on this list?
Right.
What is on Mr. Malcolm's list? And some of it was like a forgiving nature.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, I know, that's an adorable thing to have for what you want.
Yeah. So I guess what I took away from that is that not all items on the list are equally important. And there was a line later on in the movie about how he uses that list as a shield, that it gives him this sort of like template for rejecting anyone who starts to get too close to him and so on. And I think that's true for, if you like kind of flesh it out in the stuff that doesn't seem as important to him, like, musical talent and that kind of thing.
I'm going to back up one step because I said he is the catch of the season. Very, very specifically, he is the second son to an earl. Mm-hmm. And he ordinarily that just means like crap. He's not going to get any money, and at best he's going to have that. But he actually has a huge inheritance from his aunt or grandmother. I can't remember which.
They definitely talked about him being obscenely rich.
He's got money. He's got an estate, and he's got connections to a title. And
therefore, he's in the habit of shooing away a lot of insincere. Yeah. Lady suitors. I don't know do you call them suitors when they're women, or is that only for men?
I don't know.
Anyway.
But sadly, Julia is kind of one of them because she's
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah, she didn't really he's a catch, and
yeah, exactly.
This is her 4th season. She needs to get married. Mm-hmm. So, yes.
Yeah. And that thing in this setting where, if you get too old without getting married, that is basically you're being sentenced to financial destitution. So, yeah, it's not just, yeah, in that society, spinsterhood is a bit more serious than just like, oh, I never attracted a man, whatever.
I know, right? You'll have to be like
a spinster.
Like
literally earning a living that way. Or I don't know exactly how it works.
No, it's typically like taking on, like being taken on by your other relatives.
Oh yeah, there's that.
That kind of thing. Don't want
to be a burden.
Yeah.
So anyway, as I was saying, I really think that what we learn about Mr. Malcolm over the course of the movie is that, some of these criteria actually matter to him and the others are kind of that shield. And I thought it was interesting that like the first thing that kind of repelled him from Julia and the first thing that attracted him to Selena were the same thing. It was like, intellectual conversation. Mm-hmm. And despite that being one item out of 10 in the list, I think there's a lot of evidence in the film that is something he really cares about a lot. He to quote another one of Diana's old favorites, he's looking for a woman who excites his intellect as well as his loins. Or
where do you find such a woman?
London, apparently. Thank you. Yeah, and that first conversation, it was kind of reinforcing that when they originally recruited Selena for like, oh, you totally meet like 7 out of the 10 things on this list already, we're only gonna have to teach you to fake a few of them. It's kind of set up that
it was minimal, which was nice. Is that they taught her to dance, and they faked her playing the piano.
Right.
I was really curious what was happening. I'm just like, so you see a group of people, and Malcolm is smiling at towards Julia. You see her behind the piano with Cassie, and I'm just like, is Cassie just doing all of it? And she's just like, doom, doom. It's like, if what is it, chopsticks or
something like that?
In my head where you do it together. But let's be honest, somebody's doing the heavy lifting of that when she's doom, doom, doom.
Cassidy was like slapping her hand away when she was trying to help too much.
It was cute. But it was in a montage. So
yes. So yeah, I think that's my answer. I mean, sometimes I get a little bit too narrow about like, oh well, that's not really in love, that's just an attraction. But I mean, I think that he was at the very least like infatuated with her at that moment, and I feel like all the rest of the development of that relationship, at least on his side, was just falling dominoes pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what do you think?
There was really something with the cousin situation, and when it's discovered that it turns out that's Selena's cousin, and I was fascinated how quickly he apologized and made amends and even backtracked, because this is a guy in a position to just completely say no more. And he's also very, very careful about, like, I went to the opera with somebody and that was it. And like, well, why didn't you give her more of a chance? If I continue to do that when it was already abundantly clear that I didn't like her, that would be walking exactly into the problem that everyone said that I already did.
Yeah, that's true.
So he's very thoughtful.
Yeah, I mean, that was, I hesitate to say, but almost even like a very modern take of like, hey, we went on a date, it didn't work out, I didn't want to string her along, you know.
Right. So I think that he was so quick to just make amends, and in fact even turn this person, I keep saying ridiculous because that's all I have to work with. I don't want to be overly like, mean, but that's all I can think of her is just ridiculous. He said, and even so, please have her come to the ball. And then when Miss Covington arrived, he's recognizing this woman, but he's not just like shooing her. Instead, he's just like, okay, I don't want my mother to be subjected to this. Let me take you to get some refreshments. And he takes her away. And it's the efforts. It's like, I know that this is, that list, you're right. That list was his shield. And the fact that the list is just like, oh, that's not on my list. And he continues. And it's the list is now just like, I'm going to take the shield and I'm going to put it beneath my chin. So, I think that's it. And
and you made an interesting point there that, him being the well-recognized catch of the season, that, if he wanted to, he could cut and run from that entire situation and still have, all of the, female attention and courting prospects he could want.
Right.
So the fact that he's, continuing to deal with these sticky situations with Selena is, itself a strong indicator that, he's seeing something more with her.
Right, exactly. And Selena's harder because she was a very kind-hearted, good-natured person, not on board with this scheme this whole time. And it really says something to her ire when all of this happens. There's a big blow up when Julia decides to interfere with the masquerade ball. Malcolm is going to propose to Selena, and in turn, Selena has one of her staff lock Selena in not a closet, but in another room, so she can pretend to be her, hand him a list. He's like, will you marry me? And she doesn't even, Julia's in a costume of, that's Selena's
copy of the costume.
She hands the list over,
which by the way, was nicely set up because Julia helped make the costume for Selena. Oh. That was established, so she just made two of it. And
even more devious.
Yeah, she was ready from the beginning.
Right. And so that actually was surprising to me, because I thought, like, wait, no, I thought this was going to go in a different direction. I thought it was just going to be a reveal, but then all is forgiven. I didn't think Julia would keep going. But I guess that was really the point, story point wise. But all of that happened. Malcolm gets very angry at both of them, and there is another instance where Selena and Malcolm are brought together. And she actually explodes at him and just like, I can't believe that you are the person that Julia thought we needed to do this to. And it's just like, holy hell, she is just so angry. She's just so angry. And that cannot exist without just being so attached to a person, And one of the things I wanted to point out, though, is even though there was the dancing scene between Selena and Malcolm, and it was very nice, The second that Selena was pulled away saying, Julia needs you,
Mm-hmm.
she didn't hesitate.
Yeah.
And I really like that speaks to their friendship.
Yeah.
That she's in this tender moment. So,
and that was a nice little scene of them, like, you know, honestly reconciling after that blow up, because that their friendship survived was a nice cherry on top to the main love story, you know.
Well, it was Cassie that pointed out to Julia, did you ever stop to think that you and Malcolm are the same and that your standards are just way too high?
Mm-hmm,
and if you're not careful, you're just going to end up alone.
Yeah.
The difference is that Malcolm can be alone because he's rich and sought after, and Julia is going to be put on the shelf. And
yeah, Cassidy's the real hero here.
Kinda.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I really hope that his fear of horses doesn't save that for the next segment. But for me, the answer is with Selena. I think it's when she shows up in that costume and sees him across the room.
Yeah.
It's then. It's that moment.
Oh yeah, the setup of that scene where the two rows of people dancing, they just kind of like part and like make a human hallway, and they're just both like standing at either end, staring at each other. Yeah, that was
Soul Train line.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you mentioned you wanted to talk about our B couple.
I suppose so.
I don't think I have an answer for this, so I think I'll just agree with whatever you say. But
I was actually gonna hope you hadn't have brought them up. I'm like, there is two couples, and
we can skip. I mean, it's your show.
Yay! I think you need to see it and enjoy them. They add a lot to the story.
Yeah, they do.
And I think all of it is perfectly tailored for it. It's about 2 hours long, and some things did feel a little bit too long.
I did like so you're referring to Captain Ossory, who's the kind of secondary love interest for Selena at first, and that was actually another example of like courtship very amicably fizzling out, where, you know, he expressed some interest in Selena, and she was already, you know, kind of courting Malcolm at that point, and it just
being courted,
yeah, and it just ended very gracefully, and there were no hurt feelings, which is a nice breath of fresh air in the genre, you know.
Sorry, that's Elizabeth and Captain or Colonel Fitzwilliam. Sorry.
Sure.
Pride and Prejudice again.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's unprecedented. I'm just saying you kind of need that to counterbalance all the drama, you know.
Yeah, when we were watching it, I'm just like, good for them.
Yeah. And
I moved.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Yeah. So I recommend seeing the movie. Figure out what's happening with them. You don't need our words for that.
Yeah.
Alrighty.
So,
what happens with Cassie's fear of horses?
Yeah, I actually kind of forgot about that. So was the gag at the end of the movie that he like overcame that, or there were these like mid credits we're seeing these like more of the characters like the gossip cartoons.
Yes.
And he like won some sort of prize for
Equestrian something.
Equestrian. It was like some kind of equestrian beauty contest or something.
That's right. Pretty funny. But yeah, what's really funny is that all of these little drawings came up, and I refuse to have you turn off the credits because I'm just like, hang on, this might actually help and give us some. But then again, if the gossip isn't exactly truthful, like I guess the whole, I mean. But they wouldn't downright lie. Well, lying is the point is the point is this is the news, all the news that's fit to draw.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, we watched to the end and we saw what happened. So
so as for the future of our A couple, yeah, I mean that I do feel like that is a bit of another limitation of these period pieces, where it's like what future could they possibly have besides they get to be the idle rich for the rest of their lives and you know, raise a large family as is socially expected, and Selena probably has a lot of motherhood and housekeeping in her future. I don't know. I mean
housekeeping. They got staff.
Yeah, but you got to tell them what to do and keep track of everything.
Oh, so she's running.
It's a full-time job. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I was brainstorming a little bit, and I was thinking, well, what do we know about these characters that you know, Mr. Malcolm, he values intellect, and he's not particularly sexist about it. He expects women to keep up with him in conversation and such. And I was trying to think like, what exactly was like the social attitudes towards women and general like education and bookishness, because like it's like they certainly expected upper class girls to be educated, and to wit the school that Julie and Selena met at. They were at this boarding school together, and
but when they say educated, they mean like know artists and know how to play a piano and sing and draw.
And have scintillating conversations about classical art or whatever. So,
but to be fair, that is a running gag in the movie, where the whole thing we said about corn laws.
Right.
Something else came up as a question. They're like, oh dear, is that appropriate conversation for a dinner? And it was Mr. Malcolm who did that. And
I think they said not until the entrees.
Oh, we'll see. There you go. But at the same time, though, you notice that he wants to have certain conversations, but sometimes it's not exactly appropriate anyways.
Well, sure. But I mean, Selena seems game for it anyway.
Oh, she was beyond game.
Right. So anyway, I guess I was okay. So it's like, what do these what does this couple do with their future and their obscene wealth? And considering that we know that Selena, like a part of her upbringing was at this boarding school for girls at the charity of someone else, I'm thinking like, oh, maybe he does some like philanthropy or diverts part of his fortune to something along those lines. I
mean, there is that kind of version of it. I mean, I think there's going to be lots of like visiting from her parents, visiting from relations that he's not too fond of. I'm really curious
her parents, the country vicar and an Irish woman.
I also am really curious what she's going to think of his side.
Oh yeah,
because it's noted that Malcolm's brother married very unhappily.
Oh yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah,
and we didn't really hear a lot else about. He didn't seem to have a lot of family besides the brother who never appeared on screen and his mother.
Right. I
doesn't have a living father.
Is that right?
Or I mean, you'd assume we would have heard something, or
maybe. I was actually trying to figure out if his father was alive, because I'm just like, okay, so either his brother's the Earl now, or no, because she was still considered the Countess. She wasn't considered the Dowager Countess.
I see.
I've learned way too much crap.
Well, she wouldn't be living by herself if her husband is still alive. Is it just like never come out of a study, or?
I don't think it's. Well, that was his estate. That was Malcolm's estate.
Oh, and she was visiting. Was she visiting? Oh, I thought that was
Malcolm's estate
in the country.
In the country.
Because I thought it was like his parents' house in the country, and he lived in London.
No, well, no. Typically, they have a home in London. And they also have the. Remember, this is what he inherited.
I lost track. I mean, his mother was there, but I didn't realize she was visiting, so I guess I got confused.
I'm fairly certain that was what he inherited.
Okay, that makes more sense. Maybe his mother just came out to visit on her own, and her husband wasn't home. Okay.
Yeah,
fair enough.
He got business to do with Parliament or some shit like that.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know when that works.
Yeah, the House of Commons.
She wasn't called the Dowager, so.
Good eye.
Yeah. Well, it's so funny. She's like, just call me Lady Malcolm.
Right, instead of Countess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, I mean, the little drawings at the end showed that Julia and Selena were pregnant at the same time, and, beautiful wedding, and double wedding, actually. The wedding of the century.
They were making some sort of strides in pregnancy fashion, and would they even be out when they were
that's when I saw that. I'm just like, making strides in pregnancy fashion. I'm like, that's cute. They're not allowed to acknowledge the existence of pregnancy.
Yes.
They would be shoved behind a wall after the 5th month just to be safe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and put up one of those little indoor screens in front of the wall just to be on the safe side.
Have a book.
Yeah, and maybe like a fan in front of her face.
I don't know. I can see Selena trying to push out of that. Maybe that is what they're going for.
One fan in front of her face, another in front of her womb. I don't know.
In front of her womb?
Yeah.
Okay. I can see how you would respond if we ever had to deal with a pregnancy. Specifically mine.
Okay, no, I'm just saying it'd be period appropriate. I'm not...
We don't use that word.
Oh, for God's sakes. With that.
Or without that. Yeah, I see Selena making some more conscientious decisions with the money, more intellectual conversations. having a fun to do when it's time for their children to be out in society to make good matches. They will encourage love matches. And yes, idle. No, I don't think that they're going to be a little bit more than idle, rich.
And their daughters change the face of politics, or at least its figure.
I don't know.
It's when they were talking about the corn laws. Never mind.
Got it. Right. Dang it.
Sorry.
When you've only seen the movie once.
Well, I think we watched that scene like twice because we couldn't understand what they were saying.
Honey, what's a corn law?
The air conditioning was on.
Are they saying corn law? And also the dryer. We have a small space.
Turns out the corn laws were mainly about wheat and barley.
Oh, okay.
Yes. I looked it up on Wikipedia afterward.
Confusing. All right. Well, that's all I got.
Yeah, me too. Thanks for having me on again. This is fun as always.
Thank you very much. If you, I encourage you to see it once again. If you have seen it, we'd love to know what you think about it. So reach out to us on Twitter and Instagram at HEAMCast, HEAMCAST, and Facebook at Happily Ever Aftermath. If you want to email us, it's contact@heamcast.com. Ryan, thank you again.
Thank you too.
Alrighty. So until next time, may your aftermath be happy. What do I think? So it was a very important turning point when... It was a very important turning... Damn it, Ryan.
You wanted to listen to music while we had dinner.
Damn it, Ryan. I wanted to not have to edit anything.
It's off now. Will that even show up on the microphone? It's probably going to be barely audible.
I was curious if that would be, but it doesn't matter now.
Which determines whether this will be in the outtakes.